I had to watch this video by D'Angelo Wallace so you don't have to. This video is horrible. And the worst part is, fans of this dude, they're more quick to attack you when you say anything about him more than Idubbbz. All right, and I know I can get a lot of shit from Idubbbz defenders. I would not even say they're fans. They never even heard of Idubbbz before 2023, which evidently just so happens to apply to D'Angelo Wallace, who completely mischaracterizes the old content of Idubbbz, not to mention mischaracterizes Penguin Z0, also known as Cr1tiKal. For those that are not aware, Cr1tiKal has had the video with the most lukewarm take on the situation, but was also very critical of Idubbbz for apologizing. Literally, like Twitter and the comments section, they got over a frenzy over a Cr1tiKal video. He doesn't even raise his voice in any of his videos. How can you have like such an opinion on it? It's literally like the fast food of content. Like, oh, you watch it and then forget about it. Cool video. Thank you, Cr1tiKal. But if Cr1tiKal is the fast food of YouTube, then D'Angelo Wallace is that hipster vegan place run by a real smug asshole. From the title and thumbnail alone, I could tell that this video would be unbearable. And also, for all of you that think, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, that's literally what it's made for. D'Angelo Wallace made the thumbnail depicting himself like that. He thought that pose would be a good way to represent himself to a thumbnail, and then he slapped it on the video. Also, he shamelessly displays the views of each creator. Oh, Idubbbz's apology video only got 2 million, but Penguin Z0 3 million. It's almost like Idubbbz's relevance has been dropping off of a cliff ever since 2020. The only way Idubbbz gets views is when he talks about himself. You notice that when he talks about I miss the old Idubbbz and he talks about the Froggy Fresh drama, that got a lot more views than the hot seat with Dax Flame. Oh yeah, because we really needed 30-minute interviews, which could have been done as like a 30-second sketch. Let's also mention how D'Angelo Wallace tried to cancel both Turkey Tom and Sunny V2. In the case of Turkey Tom, it was for him saying the N-word in DMs when he was 15 years old. This dude is gonna be like the NSA looking through everybody who said the N-word ever and gonna cancel them.
What happened here, and we'll start with the one about Keemstar. So like most episodes, this one starts off with Ian acting out some sort of slapstick sketch before switching to some good old-fashioned YouTube commentary, in which he unironically drops the N-word with a hard R less than 15 seconds after sitting down.
We're gonna check out a channel that's best known for the phrase
He then quotes something else using the word once again, and that's not even bleeped, by the way, that's all me.
As you can see, Mr. Wallace here does not think the N-word or any slur can be said under any circumstance because it'll offend the ghosts in the room. His first criticism in his entire video is about how in Keemstar's content cop, Idubbbz says the N-word when referencing Keemstar's, yo, whole Alex is a stupid, you know that bit.
So dropping racial slurs just to prove that the person you're talking about also drops racial slurs is definitely a shaky start.
This is where we have strike one on the video. D'Angelo Wallace said that Idubbbz was criticizing Keemstar for saying the N-word back on Blog TV in 2009. No, Idubbbz said the opposite, in fact. He said he would only reference that incident for comedic purposes.
Now, I'm not going to be using any of these classic lines as argument points in this video. Instead, I'm going to use them for comedic relief. There are plenty of other things to insult the rat for.
The problem was, for every good point, he had to throw in something like this. That way you never forgot that it was an Idubbbz video.
Even though I have 1,000 videos on the internet of me saying I'm gonna cry over this video.
That was the third one, by the way. So this mismatch of valid criticism with a complete lack of regard for delivery resulted in decent digs like this.
He has no filter, he'll just do it. And this has resulted in countless examples of him saying really regrettable shit.
Mixed in with completely terrible things like this.
I've never said this unironically, but I think this will be the first time I actually say it unironically and mean it. yourself.
So yeah, how many views could you get in 2016 YouTube by making a few good but blatantly obvious points, throwing around racial slurs like it's nothing, and then telling the subject of your video to literally kill themselves? Well, 33 million, of course.
Both D'Angelo Wallace and the new Idubbbz, they seem to have both forgotten that they were entertainers. Idubbbz would be a comedy channel, commentary as well, but the focus was on making you laugh. These aren't supposed to be the most straightforward takedown of some person. Now, the new Idubbbz, he's more than willing to just cut the comedy and go after Froggy Fresh or Sam Hyde or Brandon Buckingham and even Rusty Cage for some reason. He's trying to piss off everybody that people like more than him.
The point of this video gets kind of lost in the sauce, as Ian seems like he spends more time talking about Leafy's chin than he does talking about actual valid criticisms against him.
This is what a normal human skull looks like. This is what Leafy's skull looks like.
Groundbreaking stuff, really.
This is gonna repeat throughout the entire video of D'Angelo Wallace hearing a joke and thinking, hey, that looked really bad on Idubbbz. Let me put that in the video. Let me put that clip in the video. And the clip of the old Idubbbz is like, wow, that was pretty funny. But D'Angelo Wallace just doesn't understand.
The point of this video gets kind of lost in the sauce.
Yeah, buddy, D'Angelo Wallace. The point got lost in the sauce for you and only you because you refuse to understand the point of any of old Idubbbz's videos.
For any positive impact that Content Cop had in furthering the commentary genre on YouTube, it's just really obvious how large the setbacks were as well when it comes to fostering a positive environment on this platform. The negative impact of Content Cop is pretty much impossible to measure due to the uncountable number of impressionable ears that were all too willing to accept Ian's busted mantra that slurs are the solution.
This is D'Angelo Wallace right now, advocating for censorship. He does not go full mask off in this video, but that is the subtext. Videos such as Idubbbz, the old Idubbbz, deserve to be censored.
If I'm gonna have the balls to go to Tana's fan meetup and say slurs at her and then make a video about how it's okay to say slurs, I think I should have the balls to make an apology video and take accountability for the mistakes I've made. So that's what this video is.
Okay, so at this point, I was actually pretty surprised. I find that oftentimes when people make these YouTuber apology videos, they tend to be really vague about what they're talking about. That way, on the off chance that you didn't know what they did, they're not the ones who let you know.
Idubbbz was being very vague outside of slurs and Tana Mojo. When he apologized to all the Content Cop victims, he only ever mentioned the name of Tana Mojo.
I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel, and I've also created a culture of apathy and, I don't know, a lot of cruelty as well.
Cruelty is definitely a strong word, but yeah, I think it applies here. Criticizing people is one thing, but telling them to kill themselves, mocking their appearance, purposely making them uncomfortable by saying slurs in front of them, all while ignoring the people telling you that your behavior is having a negative impact, pretty much just the definition of cruel and apathetic, yeah? So many people at the time hid behind the word edginess as just an excuse for being legitimately terrible to people. In fact, if you want to talk about words that lost their power over time due to overuse, look no further than edgy.
In this video, he makes no distinction between edginess and cruelty, and he fails to define either word.
Yes. Obviously, calling someone out for bullying kids is the right thing to do, but Ian himself said at the time that he didn't actually think bullying was bad. In fact, his main problem was just that Leafy was insecure while bullying other people. Similarly, Tana Mojo using the N-word is obviously wrong, and anybody is well within their right to call that out. But then you think once again about how Ian at the time said he didn't care about the N-word either, and that he was really just doing it in retaliation to her hypocrisy. And you know what? These are honestly pretty lackluster reasons to criticize people.
And now he is saying that hypocrisy is not a valid reason to criticize someone.
It'd be nice to not think that bigotry is that serious. To even be able to think that. Unfortunately, it winds up having really one-sided consequences for people who don't have the privilege of thinking of it as being anything other than serious. And in that same vein, I would kind of suggest the idea that there's actually no such thing as casual racism either, because It's never casual.
All right, boys, what's your ranks in competitive racism?
He also explains that he'll be unlisting Content Cop, which means the videos will still exist online, but they can't be promoted by the algorithm in any way. I personally really appreciated that because it would have been a lot harder for me to do the Content Cop review with you earlier if Ian had just nuked it from the web. And that's also kind of why I believe deleting things that are bad is not actually always the answer, so I support it.
I wonder if he's referring to shadow banning in this instance.
Particularly want to apologize to Tana. Tana, I'm sorry. I should have never made that video. I harassed Tana in person and then harassed her online, and that's deplorable behavior.
Escalating any sort of online beef into an in-person confrontation is just so unhinged. And in retrospect, it's actually pretty weird that everybody was celebrating that at the time.
Tana Mojo hosts an in-person event. Idubbbz goes to in-person event. But yeah, Idubbbz is the unhinged one.
But you know what? That was like the height of epically owning or like debating anybody who disagreed with you on literally anything. So dark times.
So D'Angelo Wallace doesn't like debates. It's almost like that whenever he would be in a debate, he would lose. He seems really salty about that. He was probably one of the college kids that Ben Shapiro owned with facts and logic.
Another thing Idubbbz brings up is his fans' horrible and misogynistic treatment of his wife, Anissa.
I don't think I've still fully acknowledged how responsible I am for the amount of harassment that Anissa has had to deal with.
Turns out the mentality that Idubbbz had built up in his audience was a great recipe for misogyny, because there is a very vocal portion of his fans that try to blame Anissa for quote-unquote ruining Ian and turning him soft. Literally like how people try to blame Yoko Ono for the Beatles breaking up, because anything bad that has ever happened must be because of a woman. Shout out Adam and Eve.
Yeah, so right here, D'Angelo Wallace is completely deflecting any criticism towards Anissa and Yoko Ono as if they're just perfect and did nothing wrong. And everybody that suggests that they even had some part to play in the downfall of their respective boyfriends, well, they're just all misogynists.
You know, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea.
Idubbbz may not be your cup of tea, but I know what is. The Dragon's Treasure Tea. For this week only, you can use code FREESHIP75 to get free shipping off any order over $75. Better yet, you can use code MANIC to get 10% off as well. That is code FREESHIP75 and code MANIC. This offer expires after Friday, June 2nd. And now this is where we get to the takedown on Penguin Z0 and his video on Idubbbz. Immediately, it is not starting off strong.
Absolutely tragic that Ian went out of his way to specifically indicate that his content was not just edgy, it was harmful, only for Charlie to swoop back in and say, nope, actually, it was just edgy. To imply that we were peacefully living in harmony with all of the edginess is to just completely ignore all of the people who were speaking out against this weird normalized culture. In 2016, that might have just seemed like the brand if you were fortunate enough to be unaffected by it. But in my experience, it felt more like the plague. And I know that I am not the only one who feels that way about that time period. Like slurs, racism, homophobia, these things are not edgy. They are wrong.
He just keeps going about how 2016 was the worst thing ever because guess what? That's when YouTube was uncensored.
I know that I am not the only one who feels that way about that time period. Like slurs, racism, homophobia, these things are not edgy. They are wrong.
He does not elaborate on this point at all, by the way.
In your 30s, it's not exactly entertaining to just be spamming slurs for shock humor. I don't find that entertaining, and he doesn't either, so it's totally fine to want to distance yourself from making content like that, but I don't think it was a mistake that he made those videos. Like, they're not hurtful, nor do I really think they're damaging.
Okay, now I know we're not talking about the same video. Idubbbz literally encouraged people to say the N-word with a hard R. How is that anything other than harmful content? This was a talking point, an extended talking point in a video that has 30 million views now.
Encourage? Are you kidding me? He was just saying that there's no reason for one word to be held above others when they're all derogatory towards different races. It is actually very clear. It is showing so hard that D'Angelo Wallace never watched Idubbbz before researching for this video.
At the end of the day, I don't think the goal of his content was ever to be hurtful or damaging. He was just trying to entertain and using edginess as shock humor, which for its time was acceptable online. Now, whether or not you think that's okay that it was ever acceptable, that's a different argument for a different day. But the point is, the point of his content wasn't to be hateful.
It's not a different argument for a different day, Charlie. It's the argument. Now, it is the argument. It's what we're talking about. Like, this is sort of the point, that this was never at any point really acceptable. It was just prevalent. The reason it went unchecked, which might be a good word for it, is that the people who were being affected by this did not have the same platform to speak up against the people who were normalizing this sort of harmful behavior. But though it was more frequent, I really hope we don't get it twisted. This was not acceptable. These words were still called slurs. People were shocked by them, hence the term that you keep using.
See, this guy keeps saying a bunch of stuff without backing up any of his points. Let's listen to this again.
The reason it went unchecked, which might be a good word for it, is that the people who were being affected by this did not have the same platform to speak up against the people who were normalizing this sort of harmful behavior.
He does not elaborate on this point at all. Who are the people that are being affected by this, and why didn't they have a platform? Because YouTube is a meritocracy. The reason they probably didn't have a platform to speak up is because nobody liked their content. Nobody watched their videos.
I just don't think that the apology is really warranted. You can explain, like, I just don't like making that content anymore, so I won't. I even regret making that content because it's kind of cringe now. But to think that it is this huge, massive problem, like you made an unforgivable mistake, is a little weird to me.
This is the part where I was like, hold on. You really just heard Idubbbz say, I apologize to black people for being racist, and then you got on your channel and said, I don't think the apology was warranted? Broski.
This is what we call a shameless play of the race card.
Why are we so intent on proving that Idubbbz didn't need to apologize when the apology was for racism? Like, why is this even a video? Why is anything at all ever?
It's almost like he provided no evidence that using slurs in the context that Idubbbz did is racism.
The vilifying of your own audience in your previous content, I don't think is the right way of even looking at the content you used to make or the audience that you had. Of course, there were bad actors in there, but not everyone was. And to make them feel like they were if they liked your content is a little weird. And I don't think that's the goal of this video by any means, but it does come across that way.
Okay, but hold up. How is he vilifying people who like Content Cop if he says in the video, it's okay to like Content Cop as long as you understand that parts of it were irresponsible? I feel like we are putting words in mouths at this point.
The whole dichotomy of a video being responsible or irresponsible is completely bogus. That's why.
Charitable, I'm always for. Though I don't think it was necessary or anything, I still think that's a nice gesture regardless. But he uses the word rhetoric here. And that again makes it sound like these videos were coming from like a legitimate racist, which I don't think they were. I really don't. At least I don't want to believe that Idubbbz used to be a racist and he was using that to try and propel his beliefs forward.
I'm really glad Charlie let us know that he didn't think it was necessary for Idubbbz to donate to charity. That was a really solid addition to what is already a very strange video. But anyway, notice how Charlie is doing the exact thing that Ian mentioned in his video, aka struggling to say without a doubt that Ian wasn't racist because we don't know his intentions. That is literally the point of the apology. Not that Ian is some crazy racist, but that he was behaving in a way indistinguishable from one and therefore wound up contributing widespread to the normalization of racism.
Both Idubbbz and D'Angelo Wallace failed to prove any such evidence that Idubbbz had an effect of actually creating some racist culture, as if there was ever a racist culture.
People at the time were literally citing Idubbbz videos as a source for why they were justified in using slurs. This made the internet a very disconcerting place. As someone who definitely did see the harm Ian was referring to firsthand, I also think personal growth is pretty amazing. I appreciated his apology quite a bit, but that's just me.
I was in school when Idubbbz was at his peak, and yes, he was popular amongst my class, but in no way were we just screaming slurs. That talking point is completely bogus. And yes, people are actually trying to say that people were screaming slurs and got suspended from school because of Idubbbz. That's a Jack Thompson Austin level take. Guys, the video is finally over. I'm finally free. I can make it out of this jail cell. Well, I'll see you guys on the other side. It was not enjoyable at all making this video, but I did it, so you don't have to.